Hey, Vinyl Community, Mark here again from Sound Matters, and today we're tackling another one of those Vinyl 101 questions, the questions that get asked over at the website all the time, particularly from newer collectors or people sometimes getting back into the hobby. Today we're tackling whether or not vinyl records can be stored flat horizontally as opposed to vertically. We're going to get into the reasons why that might not be such a good idea in this video. So let's get straight to it. When storing a record collection, particularly if you're new and you just have a handful of records, you're just starting out, it can be very tempting to store the collection flat in horizontal piles. And this can be for a number of reasons. Perhaps you just need to save space and you haven't invested into some real proper dedicated record storage yet. But there are several reasons why this isn't a good idea and why it could lead to damage of your collection over time. Now, I appreciate for a lot of you watching this channel, this is nothing new to you, but lots of new collectors coming into the hobby, and it's a question that comes up a lot. And it's also something that, for a lot of people, if you're just getting started in vinyl, why would you know? Why would you know that there was an issue there and that it was a thing not to store your records in big piles? So there are lots of issues with this problem, but the main culprit is essentially down to pressure and weight. And it's really logical when you think about it. If you store your records in big piles like this, the weight quickly starts to stack up. Anyone who's moved house with a record collection will appreciate just how quickly the weight starts to stack up in terms of you get a box full of records and they're heavy, So if you're storing them in big piles, then of course, naturally the ones at the bottom have got a lot of pressure coming down on them. And really what this leads to mostly is warping. Your records will bow slightly over time, particularly when you consider that the label protrudes slightly, in the center label on your record protrudes slightly from the surface. So the discs aren't exactly 100% flat across the surface. There's a bulb there where the record label is, and therefore you kind of get this bowing of the disc slightly over time, particularly for the ones down at the bottom of that pile. Besides the warping problem, of course, this weight could also cause other issues. You could be putting excessive weight down on particles and dust on the record. This could lead to scratching of the record surface, and in extreme circumstances, if you've got a very big, heavy pile, you could cause a record to actually crack. Another thing to consider is how this affects the album artwork as well. It's not just the records that get damaged, it's also the outer record sleeves. That same weight causes misshaping of the record jacket and can also lead to ring wear, where you get in the shape of a record, you get an outline of wearing out of the print of the record, you get that kind of side of things, but you kind of get an imprint of the record itself. You think about it, you've got all that weight coming down there and you've got the record inside the inner sleeve. That's naturally going to push on the outer sleeve and cause misshaping. So all the negative aspects of horizontal storage aside, what is it that makes vertical storage better? Other than the fact that, of course, you no longer have that excessive downward weight because everything's stacked in nice horizontal piles, there are obvious benefits to having a collection stored vertically, particularly if your collection starts to grow and you start to have a rather large collection that you need to be able to easily browse through. So, of course, naturally, having your records in vertical piles and in proper record storage cabinets, it just makes it easier to access those records and to organize them in a way that is enjoyable for you as a collector. You can put them into separate compartments, either alphabetically, or you can separate them by genre. All of those things becomes much easier, and you can easily access, of course, naturally, whatever record you want to pull out without having to handle entire piles. And of course, on top of this, and this is less talked about, but having your record stored vertically improves airflow. So if you're stacking records in those big horizontal piles, you're putting pressure down, you're stopping air from being able to get in between the records, and if moisture builds up in any way in between those records, this can lead to mold and mildew problems. Actually, as a bit of a side note on the whole humidity, moisture, mold and mildew potential problem, if this is a problem for you, you live in a very humid climate, there is a very smart way that you can mitigate this issue, or at least monitor and control it, using these HIC and desiccant cards from Vinyl Storage Solutions. We've done a review at the website before. I'll put a link up in the top of the screen here so you can watch it for yourself. But essentially, it tells you when there's moisture inside the inner sleeve of the record, and the desiccant card helps to absorb some of that moisture and mitigate the potential for it building up to the problem where you might get actual mold and mildew on the record surface, which of course nobody wants. So at this point we can probably agree that vertical storage is best for records, and I would say that this is regardless of record collection size as well. While it clearly affects larger stats of records more, I would urge erring on the side of caution, and no matter how big or small your collection is, try to keep them vertical as much as you can. Essentially, the only time your records should be horizontal really is when they're spinning on your turntable. So just to conclude then, storing your records vertically goes a long way towards ensuring they stay in good condition for decades and hopefully even generations to come. But there's so much more to this topic, so many aspects to record storage to consider in terms of the safety of your record storage and preserving your collection. Things like getting good quality inner sleeves, ensuring you've got high quality outer sleeves, getting the best, sturdiest record storage cabinets, those sort of sides of things. There's the environmental kind of considerations in terms of humidity as well. There's so much to cover. We'll be releasing a lot more videos at this channel about record storage, lots of tips coming your way. So if you're new to this channel, please do consider subscribing, and we'll see you in that next video. Until then, keep spinning.